Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about inspiration. In particular, I'm going to be talking about a few of the people who have inspired me as an artist, as well as looking at who they were looking at for inspiration. And this is a process that I'm going to encourage you to do on your own as well. Don't just look at the people who inspired you, but look beyond at who their inspirations were as an additional opportunity to learn. In this week's video, I'm going to be taking a look through some of my library. I decided a long time ago that having a library was important to me, having physical copies of books and things that influenced me, so that I would have something to look at. Even though, yes, I do a lot of digital research, it's nice to just have something I can look back on that's paper copy when I need to. So to start the conversation this week, I'm actually going to grab a few folks off the shelf. A couple of my early influences were Norman Rockwell, so I'll set that one down. Alphonse Mucha. I was introduced very early, early when I started doing art, to Yoshitaka Amano, but I had already been influenced by him without even knowing it. I was introduced to Heinrich Clay, and I will also pull out N.C. Wyeth, and some of the other Brandywine School artists. There are many others that I could pull from, but that's kind of a good collection. I'll probably pull a couple of other quick books as well, just so I can illustrate a few of my points. I may have to stop this to find... Nope, there's one. So I'm going to grab Treasure Planet. And we'll call that good for now, but I'm going to go through and talk about these books a little bit. Now, in addition to the other books that I pulled off the shelf, I decided to grab The Art of Kiki's Delivery Service as well. I have been inspired by Miyazaki and a lot of his work, but in particular, this film and the art style and everything about it were a huge inspiration for me, especially when I was going through college, was when it was finally released here in the States on VHS. And it was a big deal because it was dealing with themes that mattered to me, where I was struggling to find artistic inspiration. They related her finding her magician or her magic inspiration, her witch's inspiration, in the same way that an artist struggles with inspiration. It was something that really struck a nerve for me. They did a great job of approaching the character designs, the character development, and even their approaches to the color palette were something that created a lot of inspiration for me. So I wanted to bring that up as a personal inspiration, but I also want to talk a little bit more about other types of inspiration. It helps when I find inspiration from something to look back at what those people were finding inspiration from. For those of you who have not heard of this person before, this is Heinrich Clay's work. Now, Heinrich Clay was a comic artist. Basically, he was a satirical cartoonist. And what he would do is he would draw political cartoons and things like that. When they were creating the first Fantasia, they looked at Heinrich Clay because of the way he anthropomorphized animals. So as you can see here, these types of characters and these types of characters may look familiar to you from one segment of the original Fantasia. So once again, don't just look at the people that you like for inspiration, but look at who they are looking at. This is another one, Treasure Planet. I thought it was fantastically done. I don't think it got the praise that it deserved from Disney movies, but I think they did a great job. And one thing that was very inspiring with Treasure Planet was the way they utilized their inspiration. So for me, this image right here kind of encapsulates the whole feeling, the mood, the experience. And they were very heavily inspired by the people who did the original concept art, in particular N.C. Wyeth, which is why I pulled his books. I didn't know who N.C. Wyeth really was until I discovered Treasure Planet, and then I started doing research into the Brandywine School. Now, N.C. Wyeth did illustrations for Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. And so you can see there's one, but I'm actually going to come to this other one, this other book here, that has kind of the pinnacle image for me, which is right here, which is another one of the images that was done by N.C. Wyeth for the original Treasure Island, which Treasure Planet was based on. I'm going to jump now to Yoshitaka Amano. Now, for those of you who may not think that you know Yoshitaka Amano, if you've ever seen a Final Fantasy game, then you are familiar with Yoshitaka Amano's work. Now, Yoshitaka Amano was hired as a concept artist, so as you can see here, these are from Final Fantasy VI, or when it was released in the States, it was Final Fantasy III for the Super Nintendo, but it was number 6 in the series. But he did the concept art for most of the Final Fantasy games. He was inspired by 2 artists, one that actually inspired the other. The first artist was Gustav Klimt. Now, Gustav Klimt did a lot of things with gold leaf. He focused on decorative patterns, simplified forms, and worked on characters and compositions that kind of went along that style. He inspired another artist, Egon Schiele, and Yoshitaka Amano's work seems to exhibit a little bit of both of these artists, where he draws on inspiration from some of the stylistic patternings of Gustav Klimt, while at the same time approaching some of the character designs and shapings based on some of the work that Egon Schiele did. So it's very important, once again, to remember not to just look at the artists that inspire you, but look at who they are looking at. I next want to talk about Alphonse Mucha. Now, in this case, I wasn't introduced to another art style and then led to Alphonse Mucha. It was instead, I ran across a calendar at one point in my life that had some of the works of Alphonse Mucha, and through him, I discovered Art Nouveau, which, while he was living in Paris as a commercial artist, he was a big part of the process of the development of Art Nouveau, especially with the specific stylings that he brought to the table with his work, which he claimed all came from his native homeland, but also I believe, looking at everybody else's work as well, he inspired others and they inspired him. So there's this mutual growth of some of the fanciful detailing that became Art Nouveau. The final artist I want to look at is Norman Rockwell. Now, Norman Rockwell is oftentimes disregarded, especially by fine artists who look at his work and complain because they just see it as commercial work, which it is. But at the same time, he had a way of capturing his work so that it actually mattered to his audience. He was able to create art that people cared about. And whether you're a commercial artist or a fine artist or anything else, that takes talent, that takes ability to be able to reach your audience in a way that they care about or that they can relate to. And if you'll notice, most of the artists in my collection are commercial artists. I am heavily inspired by commercial artists, even more than fine artists, because I see the craft that they put into their work. I get to see all of the things that they do as they're trying to share messages and meaning and story and narrative. And so within that, these are a few of my inspirations, as well as talking about a few of their inspirations. I encourage you to take some time, take a look through some of the artists that have inspired you, some of the art styles that have inspired you, and then take a look a little bit further. Look at where they got their inspiration from. The update for Electric Flow this week is that I just got a new copy of the build and we're doing some more bug testing. Once we get these final bugs resolved, we'll put out a new build. The hope is that it will be at the end of the week, but if not, we'll continue to work at it until we've got something solid for you, and I'll have you an update as soon as we can. Thanks. Bye. Happy birthday to you.